Hi, this is going to be a Glyphs demo, just a very introductory level demo so you can get started in Glyphs. So here we have, so I clicked on Glyphs after installing it, and then nothing seems to be changing, but up on top here we can see that it's updated to the Glyphs window. So I'm just going to go in and open a new file or Command N. And here you can see that Glyphs has automatically filled in like a default A through Z, 0 through 9 for you. So here is just like an overview of what you have in your font file. And I'm just going to go over the menu files, like what's in this window. So here up on top, you can see the toolbar that is disabled right now because we're not in the design space. But if we go in categories, we can see that Glyphs is automatically trying to put our letters into categories. So here we can go through uppercase, lowercase. I have no ligature, so there's nothing in there. But this is how you can navigate your file. So see this check file over here? That means it has everything in there that Glyphs counts as a decimal digit. So I obviously have no old style figures, which is why here I can drag this to make it to read this. So here you can see that old style figures is 0 out of 10 because I don't have any of them. If you right click on this, it also suggests like these things called missing glyphs. 1.osf, 2.osf, 3.osf. It means open style figures. It's like a naming convention that Glyphs uses to let the program know that this is an old style figure. So you can just click on them and generate it. You can also like shift click like you would usually do for any sort of Adobe software. I'm just going to do Command A, which lets me select everything and just generate it. So here, if you see generate, you can see that I have old style figures 0 through 9, and it's generated that for me. So I'm just gonna go through. So here, you can see like symbols. This is kind of interesting to know. Like if you're thinking that, oh, I should have currency, let's go through and see what currency it is, and then right click, and then you can just be like, okay, like it doesn't have everything in here. For example, like it doesn't have like any currency symbol like beyond what's used in a handful of countries, but you can add more with like the Glyph Add Glyphs function right here. Anyway, so what's in your font file is what's shown in the categories. And then also like it's also categorized by languages. So if you see Latin, you can see that the set that it has pre-filled in for me is the basic Latin. But if you want to cover Western European, Central European, you can try to fill in these sets over here. So if you right click, you can see what's missing, for example. Okay. And then these are custom filters that you can put in. So filters, so here, I'm just gonna go down. See like this like little thing over here? You can add a list filter, or you can add like a smart filter. So these are filters that add list filter, for example, like I'm gonna make like an A through B filter for whatever reason. So if I have a filter that says A through B filter, and I've put in A, B, C, okay, I'll do A through C filter. Okay. And then, so like if I go through like A through C filter, I have A through C. So most of my, so there's nothing in here right now because it's a new font. I can color label them as well. So like if you see on the very bottom, we've moved down to over here. Like you can see that there's multiple values, which is basically just because I've selected so many of them. And then this is the left side bearing. Sorry, I'm going to go down here. Left side bearing, right side bearing, and then this is the width of the entire letter. And then there's kerning groups that you can assign. Export means it's exporting. So if it's like if you don't want to export this like Z for whatever reason, then you unclick that, and then see that file that little icon appears. That means it won't export when you export the font file. Like it just won't exist as anything beyond this original Glyphs file. Okay, I'm just gonna click that back in, and there's these color labels that are very, very useful. So when you're designing, maybe like You can categorize in whichever way you want, but like if I want, if I'm designing, like let's say like my H, and I know like this isn't final, maybe I'll label it red. So I just clicked on this red label over here, and then now the glyph is red. Also, like, do you see how it's like gray and like not quite red? This is because I haven't saved it yet. So like, so these little gray boxes that are the well, slightly transparent boxes that are appearing around these glyphs means I haven't saved it. So let's save it. So if I do Command S, or you can go to File, Save over here, it defaults as saving it as a glyphs file, or you can save it as a UFO, which might work for you if you're trying to get back into RoboFont. So I'm just gonna save it in my desktops. Just be like, you know what? I'm gonna name it like Awesome Font or something. Awesome Font, glyphs file. So I saved it. So once I save it, you can see those gray translucent boxes going away, and now like you can actually see the color now. So like every time it senses that I have done something but I haven't saved it, it'll remind me by having this translucent box over it. Okay, so the next order of business is on the right side. So you can see dimensions over here, where you can, this is basically a note-taking thing. It's not a functional thing per se, but like if you know your H stem is like 100 units, you'll put in 100 units, and if it's if your typical thin is, let's say, like 85, you'll keep it in there, and same for your rounds and your round thins and your round thicks. This is just a note-taking device for you. It's not doing much functionally. And these are plugins that I have. Oh, actually, let's go over the plugins before I get into the reporter. You might not see this reporter thing on your default glyphs, because the reporter is a plugin that I installed to let me see these plugins. So one great thing about glyphs is that if you go to Window, Plugin Manager, it'll give you all these plugins that you can install, and most of them are for free. Some aren't, or have a version of it that's free. Yeah, you can see the installed glyphs. I installed plugins that I have, which might be useful for you to see. So I have a blindfold, which blackens out everything beyond the X height. And then a label color, which allows me to see label color in the edit tab. Red arrows, which is a good little nanny tool. And then, okay, the most important thing is this reporter toggler. I highly recommend it. So this reporter toggler adds a menu over here that allows me to see all my plugins. Anyway, when you're installing this for the first time, it might ask you to install something from Git. I forget, like vanilla or something. So, but like once you install that and restart Glyphs, like you should be able to see this. Let me know if you have any trouble doing that. Okay, so that's that. And then the rest are things that you have to see in the edit window. So let's go in and do that. All right. So let's go in the N. So like let's go in the N, and so like this is like this like fake gray thing just to show that should be an N, but that's not something that I've made. So let's try drawing something. So here is the tool menu. So this is the selection tool, this is the pen tool, this is the knife, pencil tool, primitives, rotate, scale, text, annotation, hand, zoom, ruler, pixel tool, and true type. Is it hinting? True type instructor. Okay, fine. Okay, so these are the tools that are probably familiar to you because they're similar to what Adobe Suite thing looks like. So like if there's a little triangle, if you click and hold it, you can see that it gives you the option to toggle between different tools, for instance. Let me just demo how I would draw this. So for example, if you wanted to just draw a primitive rectangle, you would just click on this and then drag it. So I'm dragging this rectangle. So I can drag this rectangle, let's say for an N. You'll notice that the gray preview goes away once you start drawing it. And what you'll notice like underneath is that there's this little preview window that's like showing you what it looks like. So a cool thing about Glyphs is that you can type and space and everything in the drawing window. So like there's no difference between the spacing view or the editing view, for instance. So I'm just gonna type out a few different ends. So I'm just typing out different ends. Like I just press like the T. I've just been pressing ends on my keyboard. You can also like click on this like type tool if you wanna go and type things. So if you double click, it'll get back in the editing window. And then also what I'm doing here is I'm zooming in. You can also use, I'm pressing a Command Shift to zoom in. And then, all right, so I'm pressing P to get into the pen tool right here. So I'm drawing. I'm just drawing a random shape for argument's sake. If you're used to drawing in Illustrator or RoboFont or any kind of program, it'll seem pretty explanatory. If you click and drag, it'll create a handle. If you click and drag, it'll create a handle. Click, drag, and so forth. In order to select a segment, you can just double click nearby it, or you can click and drag to select certain segments. All right. Let me just kind of like, so if you option drag, you can just drag the on curve point without disturbing the off curve points or the handle. And of course, you can select it and then shift, moving it around moves it by 10 units. If you just move it with the arrow keys, then it just moves it by 1 unit. Okay, anyway, so like I'm just moving this around so it looks a little less atrocious, even though I spent 2 seconds making it. Okay. And if you drag in between a segment, you can also drag you can drag the line itself around. I don't recommend this usually because it doesn't give you much precision over the curve, but in a pinch, it's fast. Anyway, okay, so there's multiple problems with this end. The first one, which is that like there's this white overlap, and that's because the shapes are not going in the same direction. The way that the software knows which shape is to add and which shape is to subtract is the direction of the shapes. So if you see here, you'll see like there's a node on each path that is this little triangle shape, and this lets you know that which direction it's going in. So an easy way to fix this is going in paths and correct path direction. Also, if you press option here, it brings up a different kind of menu. It's like a hidden menu. Anyway, like we don't have any masters except this one thing, so I'm just gonna do correct path direction. And then you'll see that when I did correct path direction, Glyphs just automatically assume that I want this to be an additive stroke. And so like you can, additive path. So you can see that now the paths are, so see this arrow here, it's going in a counterclockwise direction, and this is also going in a counterclockwise direction. So it's adding the shapes. And also I'm pressing a space bar to get into like outline view mode and out of the outline view mode. Okay, the next part is that you can get the if you get like the metrics tool, you can see everything, and you'll also get a ruler, so you can kind of rule, drag things around. Just double check. If you click shift, it'll lock. So I'm dragging shift, and then so you can see that on the left side it's 110 units, on the right side is 103, and we definitely don't want that. So like I'm just making sure, wait, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now, a shortcut that I use a lot is Shift, Control, Option, Command, and then dragging it. That's a shortcut for a ruler. Again, that is Shift, Control, Option, Command, drag for the ruler. It seems like a lot, but it's very useful. So you can see that that's 110.3 and 110, so that's about the same width. Anyway, all right, so you can totally see that there's different kinds of points that are occurring here. Some are green and circular, and some are square and blue. So these are curve points, and these are corner points. There's no explicit tangent point in glyphs, which is a curve point going into a curve point going into a straight segment. So there's no distinction in glyphs. And these triangular nodes are just denoting the first node. So for every node, there's an order in which the path goes, and this just happens to be the first node, second node, third node, fourth node, and so forth. This gets more important when you're trying to interpolate, but for now it's not too important, besides the fact that this just means it's the first node. Okay, so obviously I don't want this to be a curved segment, so I'm just drag selecting it and then deleting it. And you'll notice that this is the baseline, and these little beige diamonds pop up. Those are saying that, hey, like these values are right on the line, and so we want that to happen. So I'm going to drag it, go down until it meets 0. And when I select certain points, you'll notice underneath that it's telling me like the exact coordinate. It's at the x 424 and y coordinate 0. And the distance between these two nodes are 110. All right, so that there's that. And then if you want to change the type of a node, so if I want to not have this be a curved node but a corner node, then I can either double click it and then it changes. Here, I'm going to zoom in. Or you can return, press the return key and it turns. So let me just go back. So like here's a corner point, so now it functions separately, and then so I'm going to double click that. Now it turns back into green, and once I try to drag it, it updates to be a corner point again. Okay, cool. So there's that. Okay, so there's that. And then the way you space is this value here, left and then right. So here I'm just going to just put in a whatever value, like 30. I mean, I know this looks like a terrible end, but just bear with me. This is a demo. And then so like I'm gonna put, I don't know, let's say like 40 or something over there. Oh, that's really tight. But let's just suffer through this for the purpose of this demo. So here we go. So we have these ends, and then you can, write them and so forth. And then like, let's say you want to, let's say make like an M, for instance. Here I'm just gonna Command A, Command V, Command C, Command V. And then I'm just gonna copy this, Command C, Command V. Once you copy it in, it looks like it's in the exact same spot, but there's actually a copy that's made. Sorry, so I'm gonna 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's about okay. So anyway, so the purpose of me doing that is to show you how the spacing thing works, where you can put in space values that are of a different letter. So if I just put n, it can say like, okay, like n is 50, so I'm applying a value of 50. And then so for the right side, let me go and put an n in. So I'm putting an n in, pressing return, and then it automatically senses that that's 40. So if I change the n value, for example, you can also add too. So if I do 50 plus 10, 40 plus 10, so now the value is 60 and 50. If I go to the M, it won't have updated because it doesn't want to update without you double checking it, but it will have this red sign saying please refresh. And then so like if you refresh, it'll also update those values as well. And then this is just a demo, so please bear with me. So if I have a U, for instance, I can do that. I'm just gonna flip it. Don't design this way, but this is a demo. And again, so if I want the right value of the U here, I can go and go equals vertical bar n, which will give me the opposite side. So okay, see how this is a 50 here? Now that u has a 50 value here. And the same thing for the other side. I could do equals bar n, and then it will give me the left value for the right side over here. Cool. What else? Let's also go over dragging a sketch in here because I think that's very useful. So I'm just gonna enter. You can also type in whatever you want in here, by the way. So which is kind of a nice thing as you're designing, that you can just sort of test out letters too. And here's this window over here. This is a preview window, so you can kind of like make it smaller, big, or whatever you choose. If you see like this little slider over here, it makes it so you can blur the values. If you're trying out like a text typeface that you want to make it legible at small sizes and maybe blurry or something, this is like a good way to test legibility. All right. So let's do, I think GRAN I have sketches for. So let's try that one out. I'm just gonna do GRA for argument's sake. Okay. So here is just a little folder of screenshots that I have as a demo. So if you are in the editing window, like if you just double click and just make sure you're in the editing view, and literally just drag in an image from the Finder, or like your desktop or something, like the image comes up. So it kind of skews the proportions a little bit. So if you press Shift, you can lock that in there. So you can just sort of drag it in there. You can right click and lock image, so you're not like futzing around with it. You can always right click unlock image to get it back. Okay, so lock image. And then, so if you double click, I'll go into the R, add the R, pressing Shift, just kind of futzing around. Oh, that G should be way bigger. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So A, I'll drag the A in here. And then, yeah, there we go. We have the A. All right, and so I'm just gonna make this theoretical value of the width 450 or something. Yeah. So I have the sketches in here because there's no vector shape in here. In the preview window, it'll show the sketches themselves, which is why the original image looked like this, but I put it in Photoshop to just make it higher contrast so I can see it better. So the good thing about this is that now I have the GRA value, so I can so theoretically I could go like NG. I don't have an O, but if I had an O, I could sort of test out my sketch in here, like see how that looks like. Let's just completely ignore for the moment that it's a Carolingian sketch that's living alongside a sans N. Okay, so there's that going on. Just so you know, once you start drawing anything in there, that sketch will no longer be visible otherwise. So here, I'm just gonna I don't want to waste time drawing an entire G, but I'm just gonna draw a circle in here just to show my point. Okay. Oh, well, that's not a G, but you'll get the point. Okay, so there's like a shape in there, and once you draw that shape, the preview for that sketch disappears. It's just in the background of there. So like if you click into the N, you can totally see that you can't see the G sketch otherwise. But once you get rid of the shape, I just deleted that, then you get that back. So that's a good tool to be using. What else? Oh, layers. Layers are good to talk about. So I'm just command plussing and minusing to zoom in and out. So for I'm just gonna go back to my n example, just because I have something in there. So layers are a thing in here. So if you press Command B, which is the shortcut for exposing the background layer. You can see that there's an inbuilt background layer. I'm just pressing Command B back and forth. So if you do Command B and when you're in the background, you'll see that there's like this slight pink overlay to show that you are actually in the background. So if I do Command C, I can do Command C, Command B, and get into the background, and just Command V to paste that in there. And you know, if I change that shape in the background, you'll notice that like anything else doesn't change. I can probably change. I can't change the value in here because the spacing value is determined by what's in the foreground. So like whatever I'm changing in here doesn't really affect what's in the foreground, which is like the main version that it's using. So if I press Command B again, get out, you can still see what's in the background. So this is like a good thing to do, like if you have like an alternative design that you're trying to just see in the background, or like when you have like a messed up messed up N shape or something that you're trying to fix, like hit Command B and then put it in the background, and then Command B to come back out, and then edit it back in here. You can also add layers like in here. So if you just like do like copy, it also creates a copy version, and you can just make a lot of layers that way. But I tend to try to keep it to as few layers as possible because I mean, sometimes I just don't want that many alternates lying around. Okay, so those are the basics. Oh, okay, so and just one very small thing. So here you can see like this like transformations window, and this will seem very self-explanatory for those of you that know Adobe. I'm just gonna select this shape. So if you do like flip, you can mirror flip things. You can flip them upside down. If you wanna enlarge things, or if you wanna, shrink things, you can do this by percentage in here. You can also rotate, so here you can rotate things or rotate them back. Here. And then you can skew things. This is actually very, very useful for aligning points. So like if I have, I'm just gonna put an O in here. So like if I have if I'm drawing like a symmetrical shape, for instance, I mean, don't draw your O like that. Definitely don't. But for example, like if I'm like, for example, if I got like some like skewed O shape, for example, like if it's like this, and if I want to fix it, this is very useful for you to like select together, and then you can use this to align them. So maybe I'll align them like that, and then I'll adjust them together, align them like that, and then, or you can center them, and so on and so forth. So sometimes for like, let's say if you want a symmetrical circle-y shape, for instance, I can select this, and then if you just delete it, it will automatically close the path for you. But if you do Option Delete, it will just leave it open, as you can see from here. So if you Option Delete, that's very important to know. Option Delete, it'll just leave it as a segment. And then from here, you can Command A, Command C, Command V, so it's there. You can flip it, right? And then you can drag it, and then once you drag it over, it'll click. Sometimes you might have to nudge it over with your arrow key. Okay, so see that arrow key worked? It just merged, and now it's a fully round shape. I'm just gonna copy this shape, and then just show you how this tool works. So here is the origin point. So if I'm just gonna do 30% too, so you can see it. So if you do origin point center, it'll do the origin point from there. If you do origin point in the left side corner, then it'll obviously shrink that way. Just to show you like the path direction again. So I'm just gonna do like, I don't know, like 40 or something. So there we go. It's going in the same direction, clockwise. So again, if I click that, right click, reverse selected contours, then it's getting cut out because it's going in a different direction. Alternatively, Command Z, I'm just reverting it. You can go into Glyph, paths, correct path direction. And then it'll do the same thing for you, but it'll just approximate it, right? Yeah, there you go. Okay, so, I mean, these are crappy looking things, but it is just a demo. What else? One more useful thing for you to know is adding in components. So if you do Glyph Add Component or Command Shift C, this little pop-up window will come up asking you what you want to make a component. So like if I'm just going to put an N in here just for me to reference, right? So I'm just going to reference this. Okay, like I'm just going to type in an O next to me so you see what it looks like. So you can see that this component has been added. So this is like the ghost of an N, for example. So what's in here is like an alias of that N. And this is how you can like quickly see something like judging a width instead of like Command C and then Command V-ing it in here, or wasting a layer, for instance. Okay. So often these components are used by making like accented characters like oh, I don't even have an O acute in here, but let me just add glyphs, O acute, and then so like in here I would do Command Shift C, add an O, and then like I would add an acute or a component of an acute. All right, well, let's just get rid of that. The atrocious O acute. Anyway, okay, so how this might come in useful is like if you want to test out a serif, like you can go to Glyph Add Glyphs. This is not an actual glyph. You're just making a component, right? So maybe I'll make a serif generate. So you have this like empty glyph that's called a serif, and maybe like my serif is a slab serif. I'm just gonna make it like 0 and 0 for spacing over here. Okay, so I have a serif, and then like this is like one where you can set it to not exporting, right? Because you will never just see a serif. So if you see a serif over there, and then here I'll just go to a new line. Okay, so here's an N, and then I'll do Command Shift C, and then I'll add a serif, right? So I'll add a serif in there. You can also do proportions. You can see like it's the serif, but 87%. I'm just testing this out, so it doesn't really matter. But normally you want to kind of keep it 100 by 100, just so you're not compressing something that you're not really sure what you're doing with. Anyway, so you can also copy this. I can do Command C, Command V. You can see that I've copied another one over here. Command C, Command V. I mean, this is a demo, so I'm just kind of moving things around. Your N should definitely look better than that. Oh, actually, this is like one where if it's a complete total square, maybe I can do something like that, right? Anyway, okay, terrible looking N, but you get my point. Okay, so this is where the magic happens if it's a component. Let me just like get some spacing in here so we're not colliding things. Okay, so this is the serif component, right? So like if you change this, it changes everything. So if I wanted a wedge serif, if I want it to be like way thicker, then like it applies across everything else. So that's something. And you can also flip this too, right? Like you can flip it with the transform tool. I mean, ideally you won't, you're not making an N that's as ugly as this. But. Okay, so that's a component that's useful. What else? I think that's sort of about what is useful for you right now. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, okay, export. Export is important. Okay, so Command I, I'm going in there and just make sure it's, instead of just being a new font, like your just awesome font. Okay, so like you have a name in there, so when you install it, it's not just some Untitled 101 or something. And you can add an instance, right? So if you go to plus, add instance, it'll just add whatever's in your master. That's sort of fine for now. You can name it, like, I'm going to name this medium, so you can see a medium. You don't have to futz with this like too much. It doesn't really matter for our purposes right now. Okay, so these are where automatic open type features are generated, but let's not go in there. So you have all that set, and you can go export. So let's go to File, Export, or Command E. You can see export destination, desktop. I'm gonna show you a desktop version, and then I'll show you what I actually do. What you really want is remove overlap. You can have this or on or off. That doesn't really matter for initial testing. If you unclick that, it'll automatically save as like an OTF. So I'll just go next. It'll say, oh, okay, true. It was exported successfully. So if I go in Finder, go to desktop, then so you can totally see that awesome font medium.otf was exported. So if you right click, open with font book, you can install it this way, right? Here's awesome font medium. You can see that in there. Yes, okay. So, and then if you go in Adobe InDesign, this is just a random sample file that I've put in there for you. So if you, because you've installed it, you can go like, awesome font. And I only have, like the N-U-N. So those are the things that you're seeing. But yeah, but it'll say awesome font medium. Cool. So that's that. Okay, so let me go into resources for you. Okay. So some resources that might be good for you. So obviously glyphsapp.com has a ton of really good resources. If you go to tutorials, there's a lot of articles. The alternative method for installing on your machine, if you just click Adobe, search Adobe, you'll see like testing your fonts in Adobe apps. And then it'll just walk you through this tutorial to test your fonts in Adobe apps. It seems really long, but it's not actually too hard. It's just like you have to get through Adobe's permissions in order for you to directly install it. Like, so what I do in Glyphs, if I do Command E, instead of export destination to be like at a random location, I usually have it in this fonts folder, which is here. Let me just pop it open. Here, show and enclosing folder. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I have my Adobe fonts. I have it automatically exporting into library, application support, Adobe fonts, and then like in here. But because Adobe doesn't want you futzing around with their program, you have to just follow this Glyphs tutorial in order to get it saving in there. Otherwise, it doesn't let you save in there. Or you can just you can just go like right click, remove font family every time you want to install. But that does get a little bit tiring after a while. Because if you export it directly in there, oh, actually, let me show you. So because I deleted it, see how it's missing fonts now? I'll just close it and I'll just like go back in Glyphs, export, and I'll set my export destination to fonts. So it's in there, open, and then I'll click next, and then it's exported. So if I go back to Adobe, I didn't have to install it; it was just automatically uploaded in the system. So that's pretty cool. So it's like if you it's really easy if you're designing, and then you just like hit Command E, and then you just go back in your InDesign file. It's pretty easy. Okay, so otherwise, like the tutorials are really good. There's you can browse articles. There's a lot of like font info settings, like creating a variable font, creating like Devanagari font. Like there's a lot of things if you like just if you just want to do like open type features, then you can just select and then it like goes through like features part 1, features part 4. There's a lot of really good tutorials on here. What else? So Another really good resource is lynda.com. If you just search Glyphs app, there's this course called Glyphs App Essential Training with Charles Nix. This has really good courses, so you can see you can totally go through this, and it's really nice for the Glyphs app. Yeah. Cool. So maybe that's it. Yeah. Cool. I think that should be enough to get you started. But if you have any other specific questions, let me know. Otherwise, good luck.